So.
And did you see the resolutions for water and sewer today? Yeah, no, I haven't
I
seen.
all went to say with all my hair done,
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
you know, I got a ponytail.
24,000.
Tucker, so we're ready whenever you are.
Okay.
He's in the long
Yep.
term or short?
It's so much more relaxed now.
Long term, it'll be the entire, all the possible projects.
Looking
All
forward
the possible projects, of
Yeah.
the water main,
to fun, really
the
good.
water
I've had
and the sewer on Hanukkah
good
Road,
connections with people.
the new water
See,
treatment facility
anything
at Long Point.
we need to see.
If they have to upgrade the
Well,
sewer treatment plant in Aurora.
my pleasure. It's-
Everybody, are we about ready to
Regional
start?
project, all the regional lines. So
Um,
covering everything, that doesn't mean you have to do everything. That's very reasonable. Who's doing it? The regular, the MRV?
Hey, Max.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good, how are you?
Tracy?
What's this?
No.
Just a little bit
I
of,
think that's where they first saw her.
For us?
yeah, for you.
Oh, wow.
I hear she got a proposal that.
If anybody does want an agenda before we start, I did print out a few extras. They're up here on the table. Other than that, I think we do have a quorum if we do
Okay.
want to get started. I do
All
want
right.
to say Drew Dennison and Mark Strong are both excused this evening. I just want to let that be known off the start.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the meeting to order. Minutes to approve.
Move up by tally.
Second. I'm not on this committee.
Stop seconding things then.
Right now, to. I used to be. I got thrown off of a lot of things.
All right, do we have a second on the minutes?
We do, Tricia Kerr.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Those are carried. No appointments. No updates from water and sewer. I think Mr. Vitale would like to speak to the resolution. We can do that when we get to the resolution.
I was going to get an update on water and sewer also.
Really quickly, I just want to jump in. I want to see if we have Paul Pinkney on the Zoom. I did not get a message saying he was excused. I do not see him here in chambers nor on the Zoom.
He's traditionally about 10 minutes fashionably late.
Okay, I just wanted to let that be known.
Mr. Chair,
Um,
in conference, do we have to wear a mask after we're seated? Because it's hard for senior citizens to hear. Are we unmasked when we sit?
Once proceeded, we did unmask. That was my understanding.
That's my understanding also.
Okay, Mr. Vitale would like to give an update on water and sewer.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker. Just a couple things that's going on. The water and sewer, the employees are finishing up a water line and troop that's got started earlier this summer. That'll probably be finished up in the next month or definitely before snow flies. Yeah, and we're also looking to extend that water line. It's over on Centerport Road. And we're actually, the seeker is being done and that town of Troop is the lead on that seeker. And so we continue to do these small projects. And so it's kind of a good thing because, you know, for years, this is really, I think, some of the first projects that we're actually doing in-house. It saves quite a bit of money. And it's really nice that we're working hand in hand with the town of Troop. So I just think it's a step in the right direction, and I hope that kind of stuff continues around the county. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to weights and measures. Do we have anybody from weights and measures on? Okay, if not, we all have the report. Looks like there's been a lot of activity. If there's any questions on it, we can forward those questions to whoever fills Larry's shoes. We'll move on to Gary Duckett.
Can everybody hear me okay?
I can.
Okay,
In chambers, Gary.
all right, very good. Well, you have my report. There was just a couple things I wanted to update you on that have come up since the report, or at least to bring up. So the RFP for the county office building architect, the opening date for that's been extended to October 21st. So instead of the 15th, it's going to be October 21st. I want to call your attention to number 5 under administration, where it talks about a building maintenance mechanic has resigned effective 10/1, a part-time building maintenance mechanic. Again, we're going to have difficulty hanging on to people with the way the other people are offering more money. So I'm going to be bringing a resolution to try to fill that position again next month. I did provide you, it should be in your box or wherever they keep it now, a list of all the projects that I asked to be considered for the American Rescue Funds. If those projects are not funded by the American Rescue Funds, we need to find another way to fund them, such as budget or capital plan. Just want to bring your attention to that. And of course, I'm also having difficulty hiring laborers for $15 an hour so far. Still only have one of those, and that person's off to school, so I won't see them until the new year. So I think it was Ben that said it was too low, and I guess Ben was right, because I can't get anybody. Other than that, you have the report. Doug's not on today, or I don't, oh no, he is on. Doug, do you want to speak? Excuse me. Doug, you want to speak on parks?
Maybe just a quick update, just to remind everybody, thank you that the bid is out. We're expecting return bids for the Sterling Nature Center. We did already have a pre-bid meeting. We've had some interest in it, so we're hopeful to get as many bids as we had last time. I believe we had maybe 5 GCs and several subcontractors last time. So other than that, the rest of the report's in there. If there's any questions, I'm willing to answer them.
What is the due date on those bids? When do they need to be in?
I'm trying to look at my calendar. I want to say the 25th, but I'll look. I'll get the actual date. Tucker send it to you.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any questions for Gary or Doug?
I have a few questions, Tucker. This is Trish. Okay. Hi, Gary and Doug. I was wondering how the turnout was for the pre-bid meeting for the RFP for the county office building. Did we have a lot of interest from contractors in that?
Yes, I can comment on that. It's Gary. I don't have an exact count, but the chambers was full. So there was a lot of people up there. I'd say at least probably 18 people. Each architect was supposed to only have one in attendance, physical attendance, and the rest were supposed to be online. So we should have a real good turnout for that.
That's great. Thank you. And then just a comment, Doug and I had emailed earlier today on this regarding the bathrooms at Emerson Park closest to the entrance near the merry-go-round theater. I just wanted to share some concerns that were raised with me about the state of those restrooms, and specifically like the height of the toilet facilities are really low and hard for senior citizens to use. I know that this isn't part of the set aside that we voted on, but I would like to see that project looked at, I guess, and see if there's funding to do some improvements there. I assume it's got to be one of the most heavily utilized restroom facilities at the park. And I didn't know if it was in our plans at any point to make upgrades, or if maybe there's some funding coming down the line that we could look at for that.
Yeah, Trish, this is Doug. Thanks for the email today. I appreciate it. It is one that we looked at. As I mentioned in the email, we were actually holding off a little bit on doing some rehab in there, depending on the outcome of the conversation that the Merry-Go-Round Theater was having with SHPO, whether or not they could do some upgrades and where that would fit into our larger scheme of replacing the sidewalk, doing some lighting infrastructure upgrades and things like that in that area. I'm always happy to look at it. I haven't had someone come in and actually do kind of an assessment or a workup on that building, but I'm happy to do so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Tim.
Doug, with the rescue money that's coming in, I mean, where are we with the playground now with the Emersons, and is there rescue money involved in that or no?
So far the county has designated that the $1 million that we have put set aside in support of that project is, I mean, I would defer to Aileen, but that's kind of the seed money that we have for that project has been in there. And then we do have a list of projects associated with the American Rescue Plan money that is also listed in there. And as well, we also have put those projects up both for Senator Schumer's office, Representative Katko's office. And those are the two legislative efforts that we have there. And we've had some contact with the governor's office too. So we're trying every avenue we can to start the conversations with those, and the foundations are ready to support, as well as other foundations that we've recently reached out to. So we're happy to move that forward. And those are about 5 different efforts that we're currently involved in to try find more funding.
I just wanted to say I appreciated your quick response on that, Doug. And I don't know how much an assessment would cost to look at that, but I know it's been on the radar here and there. I would love to get a handle on what the cost would be to do that. At some point, I know that'll be done. And with all the funding out there, maybe there's opportunity to tie it in, as you said, to a larger project.
Yeah, Trish, and I'm sure that we could get a ballpark price on that without doing a full engineering workup too. So we can at least start with that, and I can reach out and make that happen.
Thanks, Doug.
Any other questions for Gary or Doug? If not, we will move on to highway. Mr. Soper.
Hi, Tucker. I just want to add a few things to updates, I guess you could say, to my report. East Brutus Street, re-advertisement for the rebid is going to go out November 16th with a December 14th opening. And then we'll have a 1-season construction in 22 on that. And like I said in my report, I was able to get some additional funding from the state, which should help out with the new bids. Just an update on Sam Adams, that was opened back up last Wednesday, and we're going to repave it this Friday, hopefully. And one other thing is Scott Gulf will, hopefully that will be paved on Friday as well. And we should be able to get that opened up by the 18th. And if there's any other questions.
Any questions for highway?
Yes, one question. Anticipated miles of highway that we're going to pave, an actual paved highway. Do we have any kind of numbers yet? It was a pretty good season except for a couple bad rain situations, correct?
Correct. We chip sealed 75 miles and the balance was paving for a total of 141 miles.
What do we normally average?
I don't have those numbers.
Okay.
Any other questions for highway? If not, we'll move on to highways resolutions, PW1.
It's just a straightforward, once again, I'm having the same problem that Gary's having. My guys are leaving for greener pastures. Most of them are going to towns that are paying more.
Is there a motion for PW1?
I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion on PW1? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. PW2,
That resolution is to re-enter into the shared service agreements that were originally put out in 2014. They've never been updated, so we're looking to update them to get them into the new program.
Is there a motion? Second,
Second.
any discussion on PW2?
Mr. Chairman,
Tim,
shared services, are we buying our fuel and what was, fuel's going up. Do we have to budget more next year for fuel?
Yes, we've increased the budget line for fuel for next year.
Okay, thank you.
any other discussion on PW2?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Tucker. Brian, I was just curious, the contracts that this will impact, are they municipal contracts or are they contracts with nonprofit? Or who are the contracts with?
The contracts are with all of the above, every agency that purchases fuel from us and that we work on their cars at Motor Pool.
Okay, and I just am curious, has there been any conversation or notification to those groups at this time that we're looking to increase the rates or?
No, we have not talked to them yet because we don't have a contract approved yet.
Okay,
Anybody else on PW2? Not all in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? That's passed. Thank you. PW3,
It is to purchase a new broom, road broom, to replace one of ours with a failed transmission. And it's budgeted money.
Move it.
okay, I'll bite on the discussion of this one. Somewhere along the lines, we bought a street sweeper. Are we now considering, or, I mean, is that a viable piece of equipment for us to own, or are these brooms a better option? And if so, are we looking to get rid of the street sweeper or?
Street sweeper will be a next year's surplus auction when this one shows up.
Okay,
And just so everybody understands that we literally now, everything is a year out. The pickup trucks that was authorized to purchase last month, they're 7.5 months wait on a pickup truck nowadays. So it's going to take a lot of planning to replace our equipment. We're going to be doing it a year ahead of time from when we actually get the delivery.
seems to be a problem everybody's having.
Yes, it is.
Any discussion on PW3? No. Yeah,
You mentioned that you're replacing the tractor with a failed transmission. Will we be fixing that and keeping it, or are we, is that going in a trade, or how are we gonna get rid of it, or what?
We'll include it in the surplus for next year if we get the new broom. This one broom is going to replace 2 pieces of equipment.
any other discussion on PW3? Not all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. PW4,
This is to renew the contract with the New York State DOT for their snowplow removals or snow and ice removal.
is there a motion?
Move it.
Second,
Sure.
Any discussion?
Ryan, were you able to negotiate it all?
Yes, we have an increase. I did not write that number down. It was, that we increased it. We were able to get another couple 100,000 out of them for our base rate, which is pretty good, I thought, for our time and materials contract.
Any other discussion on this one? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
One opposition. It might have been the easiest snow and ice contract we've passed in a few years. Okay, thank you, Mr. Soper.
Thanks.
What's, Mr. Vitale, do you want to do PW5?
Yeah. Yeah, so last month I reported that we're moving forward with the seeker. At that time, I had mentioned that the water and sewer is going to be asking for $12,000 to do the seeker. I've spoken to a couple of the legislators, and because water and sewer has to actually borrow money from other water districts or sewer districts to do this, and then have to pay them back. We have a substantial amount of money in our economic development account, and so it suggested that we take the 24,000 from that account and move the whole project forward. And I'll reiterate, this seeker covers all aspects of not only the regional water project, but also water and sewer on Hanukkah Road, Sunset Beach, and another road right in there that are right on the Cayuga Lake. And it also covers for the water intake and treatment plant at Long Point. It also covers for a sewage treatment plant for Hanukkah Road if we end up going in that direction. And it will also cover if we look to improve the water treatment facility in Aurora. So once the seeker gets done, any portion of this can move forward. And so this gives us a lot of options. I think it'll really help the Water and Sewer Authority be ready for a shovel-ready project when any of the funds become available. So for that reason, I would like to move PW5.
Yep.
I'll second.
And just to be clear, Mr. Vitale, this, other than the cost of the seeker, commits us to nothing, correct?
Pardon me, Tucker?
Seeker doesn't commit.
Other than the cost.
Other than the cost of the seeker, correct.
Right, okay. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Tim?
I'm all in favor of economic development, and I think this pipeline will help in that direction, and we do need a dual source of water. I'm all in favor of sourcing water, quality water, wherever we can do it. I'm wondering whether or not with the one-time pipeline from the state or from the federal government being what it is, hopefully we can, with the different plans that we have, that maybe we can expand on. Is it expandable?
Yes, absolutely. If you remember, it's about a 12-phase presentation that we did for the regional water project. So even if all of those phases got done, it can still be expanded upon. But the one thing that this seeker will do, it'll cover all 11 or 12 of those phases. So we could pick and choose any of those phases to move forward. And once, I mean, it can always be expanded, Tim. That's one of the things that we've been looking at is how, where are the areas that we can expand after this is done? Because, what we're doing now is really planning for 25 or 30 years down the road also.
Well,
Any other
you-
on
the
PW?
discuss is gonna be the long form, not the short form, so hopefully you won't have any environmentals.
Yeah, so the engineer is preparing all the engineering work, and our planning department will be filing the seeker. So it's, our planning department will have some, some responsibility there, but we're trying to limit it so that we don't overwhelm them with work.
I was going back and forth.
Doctor, I had a follow-up question, if that's okay. And I know at one point there was a look at that segment going north along 90 to the wildlife refuge. I don't know where that ended up, if that's going to be part of the seeker or not, but do you know offhand, or could you look into that? The only reason I'm asking is because I believe the refuge has got plans to do some pretty major upgrades to their visitor center, and there may be a good opportunity there to kind of tie those two together potentially.
Yeah, I'm not certain, Trish, but I think around 90 is one of the phases. But I'll also say that the Wildlife Refuge is a federal organization, and they probably have more pull than we do in getting something done.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I was just
I
thinking,
think we would be more than happy to do that, because one of the other things that would do is would also provide water in another direction for the town of Montezuma, which is the highest paid water district that we, they're paying more money than anybody else in the county for water at this time.
gotcha.
Any other questions or comments on PW5?
Well, I just want to add one more thing. I mean, what's the pottery? And Mackenzie Childs, I mean, they've had a couple different ownerships, and I know that they moved their warehousing out of Cayuga County to up by Fulton. It would be nice to maybe ask the different manufacturing or businesses that are there, whether or not there's any kind of growth factor that this could bring.
I don't know how much water they use in warehousing, but I'm not sure this is going to bring them back.
With the supply chain, and hopefully they'll bring back some of the manufacturing of the Mackenzie Childs.
Any other discussion on PW5? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay, we have one more. It's PW6. It was a late ad today. Appointing, I am not going to pronounce this right, Lucatis as Director of Weights and Measures. Does anybody like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion. This is her.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? That is carried. We welcome him. And we thank Larry for his time he had with us. And is there anything else for this committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Tim?
Public Works, does that include the video and the sound system that we have here in the chambers? I'd love
No.
to see it upgrade so that we
need to
can do,
meeting.
pardon?
You need to go to government operations to discuss that.
Oh, yeah, it's not a public works issue.
That's IT. IT told
No,
us,
that's buildings and Tucker, that's buildings and grounds, I think, right?
Can't hear you.
the chamber microphones and
Is
cameras?
it buildings and grounds?
No. I don't think so.
Yes, Gary, that was, I think, working
Hear you,
that out.
Mr.
We've always had this discussion with IT in the past. I always thought that that was their baby and they fall under you.
Things fall in the crack.
All right, well, we'll figure it out.
Previous IT directors told us that those Radio Shack microphones we have in there are state of the art and best we can get.
Soup cans.
Couldn't hurt at this point. All right, we'll sort that out. Mr. Lattimore can know which committee to go to.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else for this committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Planning and start.
Is IT in the room?
Yes, we are.
Why would anyone want?
Okay. Because I only have the blank screen here, so I'm just waiting to see when I need to,
It's like water.
when Paul comes back. Jeff, are you gonna record this meeting or do I need to?
It's all being live streamed still.
Okay, thanks.
So do we have a quorum here?
I believe so. I've got, Chris was here and Paul,
Yes, I'm here.
yeah, Trish and Tim, and I don't have Mike Didio, I don't believe. So
Okay,
we've
thank
got
you.
4. And I haven't seen Keith. Is Keith in the room?
Yep.
Oh, Keith is here?
Can't you see us?
Can't you hear him?
No, I had everything muted until the next meeting started.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I got one. Thank you. Yeah.
Government moves pretty slow.
Are there extras?
There's more comments.
Next. No, I did ask. Huh? Is it Max and William? No. Right. No, just Max, it's just.
It's Max. Yeah, weird nickname, I know name's Paul. Really random, yes, really random.
I got you.
I'll be right back with a couple more.
Actually, Max, my computer is working here, so I won't have to have this save you a trip.
You got it. Anybody want to claim this one? Of course.
Some of these are like the old card parts. Like the old.
What are
Yeah. It's Halloween. What's the kid gonna dress like that? Mr. West. There. His sidekick. With the daughter adopted him?
Oh, Max isn't doing the notes for this meeting, Suzanne is. So Max was leaving.
Next, we'll be back or no?
No, he's leaving.
Suzanne, you're on, right?
Yep, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okey-doke.
All right, we're gonna get ready to roll it. Call the meeting to order. Minutes to approve. Entertain the motion.
Move it, Petrus.
Second,
Second for.
any discussion? All in favor?
Alright.
Against? Okay, carries. Appointments. Ag and Farmland Protection. Jenny, are you on?
I move the appointment.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, tonight we have a presentation from Dan Welsh. Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks,
Paul.
Take this off on copy or? Yeah. Okay, that'll help. So, can you hear me? Good evening, everyone. Want to thank Paul for giving me the opportunity to give you a little bit of an update on some of our plans for the future for cooperative extension in Cayuga County. As several of you might know, I got hired and started my job about 5 months before the pandemic. And so a lot of the original big plans that I might have had got put on hold as we adjusted to COVID rules and regulations, changing guidance from the state and all of that. And now that we're in a position where hopefully we're getting ever closer to putting the pandemic in the rearview mirror, and the fact that we have completed our move out of our old building at 248 Green Avenue, it's really time for us to refocus on our programs and some of our core mission. Next slide, please. This is our mission. This is a statewide mission for cooperative extension that we put knowledge to work in pursuit of economic vitality, ecological sustainability, and social well-being. And of course, extension's rooted in every county of the state. So I have colleagues in 56 counties plus New York City that deliver extension programs. And we're really our goal is to help families, farms, and communities thrive. Next slide. Our local vision is to use Cornell University research and our extension state and national networks to deliver innovative programs in agriculture and the environment, 4-H youth development, and nutrition and health that develop resilient farms, children, families, and communities. One of the interesting things about my job is that I have three or four bosses, 5 or 6, including those of you in the room and on Zoom, including some folks at Cornell Cooperative Extension. And there is a federal role through USDA in extension programming. Our organization is based on a little section of county law that specifically deals with cooperative extension, County Law 224. And what that says is that the county extension associations are the vehicle for the counties to cooperate with Cornell University to extend the programs of the university to the citizens of the state. In particular, the colleges of agriculture and life sciences and the College of Human Ecology at Cornell. The other thing this law designates us as is a subordinate governmental agency of the counties that we operate in. And that is unique in to New York State. All 49 other states organize their extension systems differently, but we are a unincorporated body of citizens that are interested in the topics that we work in. So agriculture, community and economic development, nutrition, youth development, environment, and energy. So we do have our own board that helps to determine our local programming. And these are members of the board, and we'll send this out to everybody if Amanda hasn't already done that. One of the things with our board is the legislature does have 2 representatives to that board right now. Mr. Batman and Mr. Vitale are our representatives, or your representatives to our board, along with an ex officio member from State Extension Administration, Ithaca. In addition, we rely a lot on input from our program participants, our volunteers in setting our program direction. So we're in the process of kind of looking at more intently some of the what we need to do to better serve the residents and citizens of Cayuga County. And over the next 4 years, one of my goals is we really have to build back our capacity in several areas through investments in staffing and programming. Between the operational cost of the building on Grant Ave and some financial challenges over the last decade, we're sort of at a bare minimum in our staffing right now, and we need to grow to be able to do our job effectively. The first thing is in agriculture, and I just want to give you some quick statistics on agriculture, because I think sometimes folks driving around, yes, we know there's farms, yes, some of them are big, some of them are small, we see some cows, but Cayuga County is really a very significant player in the state when it comes to agriculture. So we're number 2 in the state in the value of sales that the farmer receives. We're 5th statewide in the number of farms. We're number 2 in New York State for dairy, and 31st in all of the United States in the amount of milk that we produce in this county. We're number 1 for soybeans, number 2 for corn, and then we have a significant fruit and vegetable sector, about 3,000 acres of vegetables, 800 plus acres of fruit and grapes. So in a lot of ways, investments in agriculture are investments in economic development, and ties into, I know Danielle from CETA is going to may talk a little bit about her supply chain analysis. One of the things they're targeting is processing of a lot of these agricultural commodities. So how can we do a better job supporting agriculture and farms in the county? So one thing we're looking very hard at is joining a regional agricultural extension team. In the past, it was very common for county extension associations to have 3 or 4 agricultural agents who specialized in different areas. And this county, I think at one time there might have been up to 5 or 6 of them, going back to the 60s and 70s, up until maybe 20 years ago, there was about 4 of them. But extension across the state has evolved into this model of regional extension teams, where you have subject matter experts, usually with higher degrees, higher levels of education than you can keep at our local salaries. And so they'll have, there's field crop, dairy and livestock teams that'll have expertise in all of those areas, plus farm business management. There's regional teams and vegetable teams. And how those work is each of the participating counties pay into being part of the pool. And right now we're at a point, and you know, some of the other folks have talked about with the challenge of salaries and keeping employees, that the cost of one of these teams maybe be able to hire 1.5 people locally, but we would then have, by joining these teams, we'd have access of up to 7 specialists if we're looking at the dairy and field crops and livestock team. The other important thing this does is becomes a conduit for applied research here in the county. And everybody's aware that water quality is a big issue. Some of these questions, okay, can be researched, and we can look at what works and what doesn't. Along with the evolution of this regional team model and some kind of changes at the Cornell campus, most of the applied research is now being done by the specialists on these teams. Okay, it wasn't that long ago where I could have said to a faculty member, hey, I want to do a project. Let's look at tile drains. Well, because of changes in regulations, it's a lot easier for that faculty member to work through those teams because they're part of Cornell. And even though we are part of Cornell, the paperwork is still twice as much to work with me than it is one of the specialists. And And really, we don't, myself and our other ag educator right now don't have the time for that. Another thing, when it comes to our specialty crops and value added sector is we are going to be looking at taking over the operation of the Taste New York store at the Equal Rights Heritage Center. Right now, that is being operated by Cornell Cooperative Extension out of Tompkins County. The state really wants to, at ag and markets level, wants to get that rationalized. So the counties are running the stores in their county. So we'll be looking at that in the coming year. Real benefit there isn't necessarily the operation of the store, but working with our farmers, our food processors on what's required to be sold there, get their product in the store, which is another revenue stream for them. That also means they can start selling their product in the other Taste New York stores across the state and through their online portal that they set up last year. So one of the questions that I get when I talk about these regional teams is, well, what happens locally? And with the regional teams, it works best when there's still a local agriculture educator who can be conduit between the farms and that team. So right now, what we're looking at is that that person would have a focus on some of our smaller to medium-sized farms, that they would work quite a bit, maybe on nutrient management education. Some of our smaller farms that are going to need some additional support, education in that area. And work closely with Soil and Water Conservation District. A lot of our farms, before they get to working on implementation or detailed planning with Doug Kirsten and his employees, going to need to be brought up to speed on some of these things. Because a lot of farms, it hasn't been a priority, it hasn't been something they've had to focus on. And the hope is that this person would be able to visit 175 farms per year out of our 834. Next slide. One of the things, and Mr. Vitale's been asking about this quite a bit, is our outcomes. And this is one of those things that lately we have not done a great job with, is communicating our outcomes. But under that partnership between Cornell and USDA, we have to put all our programs in certain buckets, and then there's outcomes. So these are the areas for agriculture. Within each of these are targeted outcomes. I didn't put those all on the slide because you wouldn't be able to read them, but I will follow up on some of these. So these are the areas that we're focusing on now. Our board's going to be going through a process early in the new year to see which ones of these is it time to change, time to look at something different. Next slide. Okay. Environment. We have traditionally had a fairly strong environmental program that focused on water quality and solid waste education and helping with recycling, composting, those types of things. That's kind of fallen by the wayside the last couple of years. So one of the things with our hope is to have a full-time environment educator that could focus potentially on three things. One would be water quality education. Right now, I know the focus is on Alaska Lake, and obviously it's critical with it being the drinking water supply, but there's a lot of organizations working in the Alaska Lake watershed. We have other watersheds in the county that need some attention and could benefit from education. So Hugh Lake, Lake Ontario, the Seneca River watershed. Another thing, and this is actually spelled out in the HAB's action plan for Wasco Lake, is looking at forestry-based solutions for water quality. And in that plan, it assigns that role to cooperative extension. And then waiting to see a little bit on how this revision, county planning is going through a process of revising the local solid waste management plan. Once that's finalized, we can see where we might be the best fit to support that plan. Real quickly on 4-H youth development, this is probably an area where we aren't as constrained by capacity, but we do need to be thinking about how we do some things differently for that program to grow. So one of the things is offering programs outside the traditional club model. A lot of counties are going through challenges finding volunteers who want to be club leaders, who want to put in that time. I have a club leader who just decided to hang up her hat after 20 years. Going forward, do I see a lot of people saying, I'm going to lead a club for 20 years? Probably not. Okay, everybody's time, there's more pressures on your time. You don't have the time to do that. So we're going to be looking at that. The other thing is looking at subject matter that is going to appeal to youth and families in the city and some of the surrounding towns. We've done a pretty good job supporting, I guess, what is our historical core of programming in animal science in rural communities. But there's a lot more 4-H has to offer for all youth in the county. And then again, these are some of our outcomes. And this is another area where I think we can do a little better job of saying what our outcomes are. And in the past week, we actually just finished up National 4-H Week, and we had some videos on our Facebook page from some of our seniors who graduated last year, or some of the alumni of the program that have been in college the last 3 or 4 years, what 4-H meant to them. Next slide. Okay, nutrition and health. This is one, I know I report on some of our nutrition activities. Right now, that program is funded fully through SNAP Ed funding that flows from USDA to the state of New York. And in the round of funding that started in late 2019, I'm not sure, but they put more targeted restrictions on who you could work with and which communities you could work with. So right now, just relying on that funding, we can only work in the city of Auburn, Port Byron, and the Cato Meridian School District. So that leaves out a large chunk of the county. So we need to really look at how can we expand that program, what grant funding is available, and potentially hiring a program leader to take advantage of some opportunities in nutrition and potentially in health. Next. Those are our outcomes, and now I'm saying that looks better on my laptop. Probably a little hard to see in the room. I don't know if it comes up on Zoom, but again, I'll get those to you. So, and there's a couple emerging opportunities that relate to state and national trends and extension. One is an expanded role in public health education. Again, this is nationally, they're looking at this because many Many health departments throughout the country don't have health educators on staff. And even if they did over the last couple of years, they haven't really been able to do education because they've been so immersed in the day-to-day of the pandemic. CDC recently partnered nationally with Extension to work on immunization education. There's a lot of interest in Extension doing more work around mental health. Again, especially in rural areas where there may not be adequate amount of mental health providers in the area. Next thing that's going to be big is climate change. Okay, looking at resiliency, adaptation. How do we help our farms be prepared for 8 inches of rainfall that luckily came when everything was growing, but if it had come in April, that would have been a very different story. How do we look at energy transitions? Okay, as people are looking at all kinds of different electrification. This one is nothing new for Extension, actually, because in the 20s, our home demonstration agents worked with housewives at the time to show them how to use their newfangled electric washers and dryers and all of that. Worked with farms on electric motors, how to set up their tractors when we're moving from horse to gasoline power. And then another important role is President Biden has laid out that like to see U.S. agriculture get to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. A lot of that is going to be done through carbon sequestration. So that's a whole different type of management in terms of things like tillage and how do we get credits for that? Are there going to be private markets involved in this in terms of carbon credits? So there may be a lot of work there. The final thing, and this kind of goes to our being eventually back in the new Workforce Development Center with college, our partners from employment and training, is around food systems, workforce development. Again, heard the hiring challenges. So a lot of food processors, somewhat retailers, input suppliers are also having a hard time finding skilled employees. And at the state level, they're looking at what can we do as Extension to help train those workers for the future. So two things I just want to conclude with is I want to thank the legislature for your continued support. Please reach out to me if you ever have any questions. And two, I did spend a little bit of time on that regional ag team thing because I will be asking for some additional money next year's budget. So thank you very much for your time. And if anybody has any questions.
One for Dan.
Is it true that our soy is probably some of the best soy in the world? And I think Mr. Dumont, who's an MIT graduate, they were in the front page of the paper today doing grain safety, and that was great. Is that true? We do have the best soy, and processing it here versus shipping it would probably be a carbon neutral.
Yeah. I mean, I think, what Todd has done on his farm to have the processing done here is a big winner, both for his farm and the other farmers that are supplying him. Because farmers have the unique joy of having to usually pay freight both ways. So that shortens up their hauling time. That's less cost for them. I don't know if it's best in the world, but I'll put it up against anybody else's. I do know another place where some of our grain gets sold is out through the port of Oswego for export markets.
And I know that Mr. Batman, Mr. Didio were interested in somehow helping the manure management thing. Have we gotten any better at that?
I'd say we made a huge advances overall in where we're at compared to 20, 25 years ago. Is it perfect? Probably not. There's still more work to do there. Is it ever going to be 100%? Probably not, because things happen, but I think there's more things that we can look at there. And a lot of this comes down to working one-on-one with the farmers, which is some of the challenge that we have, Soil and Water has, when you have 845 farms. How do you talk to every one of them every year? Especially since both of our programs are also voluntary. We can't just show up and say, hey, you want to improve your manure management? I mean, we could try it, but it doesn't always work that well.
Yeah. And with the neutral carbon, I think we explored capturing some of the methane off the digesters and putting it in a pipeline. And I think they're coming up with more and more credits that way, so that the pipeline will be feasible.
Yeah, and there's actually a biogas project now where they're going to, some of the farms are looking at, and I'm not sure if it's through NICEAG, but putting some of that in there, and then they get credit for it, but it goes in, there's a process to clean it so it's closer to the pipeline natural gas. Yeah.
Just to follow up on Tim's question about the manure management, I think, Dan, it wouldn't hurt to explain that, a lot of the big farms have to have CAFOs. But one of the things that Cooperative Extension would be focusing on is the smaller and medium farms that don't have a big CAFO. And a little education and help there would go a long way too. So, I know you mentioned small and medium farms on here, but that's one of the focuses for those small and medium farms also.
Right, and I think there's also with manure, we think a lot about dairy manure, but we have a lot of beef farms, sheep farms in the county that haven't really had to think about it, and that's another area where we can be provide some help to those farms in dealing with it. Hi, Trish.
This is a great presentation. I love it. I'm excited about the plan and direction. Has this been adopted by your board?
Not yet. This is sort of the outline of the.
Okay.
We're at the outline stage, so.
Gotcha. I was curious in terms of the resources that you have right now in your office. You talked a little bit about the regional teams and things like that. What do you see with the youth programming? Do you have the resources you need to implement what's in the plan? And same with the climate and energy focus.
So I would say with youth development right now, our plan is we have a full-time youth educator who can maintain our programs to take that next step. We are going to need at least a half-time person. With that position, we do have the resources to do that. One of the things we've been looking at there is offering more after-school programs. So we've held off a little bit, not knowing what the school situation was gonna be, and as that stabilizes, we'll look at that again, here in the near future. And then with climate and energy, I don't know at this point that we would have a dedicated person just to that. I could see it being both part of an environmental position and then something that our ag educator would work on and then build on there with grant funding.
And then just one more question. Do you envision doing like 1 year action plans off the strategic plan? And are those do you have something in the works for 2022?
Yeah, that's one of the things we're gonna be working on. And I did mention, you saw a little bit there about the outcomes. One of my intentions in 2022 is either on a rotating basis, because there are a lot of them when you get into this plan, or quarterly provide the legislature with an update on where we are with some of those outcomes.
Tim?
I mean, people drink water, animals drink water. Mr. Vitale's, doing that pipeline south. I know there's a lot of farm operations there. What's a cow drink, about 50 gallons a day or something? 20 gallons a day.
Yeah, they drink a lot.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, is the groundwater keeping up with?
Most of the time, there has been a couple of farms have had some challenges in the summer of 2016 and last summer. But they do, cows on their own, and I forget off the top of my head, but it is a considerable amount of gallons that they have to drink every day just to make milk. So it is something that the farm, some of the farms are looking at for the future when you think about, are we going to have, or a lot of the climate change models for our area say we're going to have more, greater periods between precipitation. It may not be a Western style drought, but certainly drier than we've seen, coupled with some of these intense rainfall events over a couple days.
I'd love to do a little more planning with Cornell, with some of their ideas and inventions, and hopefully we can get the big red corridor. Down it has to go.
Anyone else? Anybody else for Dan? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Shift right over to Kelly King, employment training.
I feel like I'm not going to be as exciting as Dan's presentation, but couple of things that I want to go over from my report, two of which have to do with the program. So we just wrapped up our summer youth program, which is TANF money, and that ends on September 30th. Two goals I had for the youth program was to serve 50 kids and spend my full allocation for youth wages and fringes, which was about 121.5. Served 49 kids and 121.1, so I'm pretty happy. I would say I met the goal there. And this summer we had more kids that actually left with employment than we ever had before. So that was incredible. Most kids leave the summer program and it doesn't result in a position, and this did. Some were civil service positions. One was at East Hill. So I'm very pleased with that. I think that my staff, Janelle Barisi, played a big role in those kids securing that employment, which is huge. So to me, it was a win-win. Did come very close to our goal. I'm happy, very happy about that. The second thing is our We Owe a Year-Round Youth program. So that program is our federal program for youth. It's shifting focus a little bit, and it's going to focus more on well-being for youth and life coaching versus our strong focus is always on job readiness. Get them in a work experience, get them skills, and not so much focusing on the fact that if you're enrolled in our program, you could potentially be homeless or an offender, addiction, parenting teen. And we focus so much on job readiness, which is part of the goal, but the other part of keeping a job is looking at all of those other things. So the shift really in that program federally is to focus on some of these other issues. That being said, I have one staff person who's been doing the youth program for 20 years. It's hard to shift focus when you look at changing a program like that. So we will be participating in a training, myself included, Jim, and then I'm bringing in somebody else because I'm trying to do some cross training. It's never happened in EMT. So that is actually starting this month, and we're going to go through into January with those courses, a team of local, county, state, and some federal players. It's an intense training every other week for a couple of hours with work in between, but it's really going to focus on our design framework, our performance indicators, eligibility, and then of course focusing on the well-being part of it and the follow-up and all of those things. So I'm excited about that. That's a big part of our staff development. We need that. So that's going to start actually on the 21st of October and moving into January. So that's good. We need that training. I'm happy that you were included. It's made up of many counties in the region too. So we can collaborate with what other counties are doing, what's working for them, which is a great way for me to network in the youth program. So that's good. The other thing that I spoke about this maybe, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I was discouraged with our job fair that we spent a lot of time. We reached out to over 1,000 job seekers. We had 6 job seekers come to the Career Center, super discouraging. Back at it again, we're going to do a job fair at the mall. October 23rd, it's going to be a Saturday, which, a new venue, Saturday, possibly. Speaking to employers, they're desperate for jobs. They're desperate for workers. I talk to employers every single day, and they're just beside themselves that they can't work and they have to close on certain days, and it's a huge struggle for them. And they have indicated, we don't care if we have 5 job seekers or we talk to 1, it's better than none, and that's what they're getting. So we're going to move forward with the job fair on the 23rd and see if we can, help some of these local businesses. Some of the things I talk to them about is, how do we entice people to come on, and we'll get incentives and sign-on bonuses and incentives for folks that make it even, 30 days. I work with Loretto closely, and they have a very hard time keeping people and getting people to come to work, and really focusing on the soft skills and rewarding them, and almost like our youth. Some of these folks need that guidance depending on the level of employment and the type of job that they're working in. So working with the local businesses to really figure out how to capture them, how to keep them, how to retain them, and really incentivize them to stay on, and then how to bring more people in. So that's a challenge we've been working with since the pandemic started, and still moving forward with that. I hope we have a turnout at the job fair, but I'll keep you posted in the next meeting that we have. Last thing really is employment and training. Every year we go through routine program monitoring. I think I was lucky because last year, which was my first year, they canceled it. So they did not monitor and audit our records as they do every year. We're usually pretty spot on with our performance, but this will be my first time going through the review. Started a couple of weeks ago. Today was the deadline for me to submit all of my documents, and it's the first remote audit monitoring ever, and they're using Cayuga County as kind of the guinea pig. So the first one in the region. I'm also happy about that, I think. So starting tomorrow, I'll have weekly or daily reviews where they'll go through our files and talk to me about what deficiencies and things like that. And then we'll have our findings later on in December. So Got lucky last year. We'll see how we do this year, but this is a routine monitoring and confident that we'll do well. That's all I have for today.
Questions? Tim, you must have one.
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
Thanks. I mean, back in the day, in the sixties, they used to have what was it, training, and I can remember working in the stream beds, putting in rocks that aerate the water and stream bed erosion. Do we have any money to maybe help with getting the kids out and getting some fresh air and getting off the computers and actually showing them how they, can save their drinking water and, or help, purify by not having, sediment in the water?
Wasn't that
Do we have
what
any of
soil
that?
and water years ago?
AmeriCorps?
It might have been.
See,
It
well,
might have
wasn't
been
it?
AmeriCorps.
Like America.
Oh,
The
yeah.
CETA program was more like 40 years ago.
It was,
40?
wait, the seats,
Yeah.
Not State Street, but
no, I know what you're talking about. Seats, the CTPA,
Yeah.
something like that.
Long time.
Classroom training, it was long before my times, but I will say I've seen that in files because we keep everything.
yeah.
There is money, there is training money for kids. We have those dollars. Our challenge is capturing the youth that are eligible for those funds. So in order for us to use those funds, there has to be a barrier of some kind for us to use WIOA federal money. That money is set aside for kids that really are considered at risk. So not only low income, but an added barrier. So a high school dropout would be automatically eligible for our WIOA program, automatically without another barrier. And then if they are in high school, they have to have some sort of disability, parenting, pregnant, foster care, offender, homeless, there's, and so forth. So it's hard for us to get those kids. But when we do, which is one of our goals, is to try to capture those high school dropouts and then the kids with barriers, working with probation and foster care unit and homeless shelter and the county and whatnot. But there is training dollars for us to be able
Yeah,
to
that's
do
what
that.
Tim's talking about. It's not training. And those programs have not been, those were federally funded programs that did a variety of things with both adults and youth. They haven't been funded in years. They're good ideas.
Yeah.
I disagree with you there, but there's no funding for everything
I
now.
can remember, cutting cabbage at Dickman's.
Exactly.
I mean, something to get them off the couch and, rehabilitation with drug and alcohol. I mean, keeping them busy at boot camp type of thing, saying, I'm gonna put you here, but you're gonna go to work every day. Train the mind and body to get up and move. It would help in their recovery.
100%, I agree with that.
Anyone else?
I would just add, I know being on the Soil and Water Conservation District Board, they used to have, I think, 40 years or more AmeriCorps that worked. And I think, and Doug may be on the call, but I think the program became very cumbersome administratively. But that, something like that, where the youth are out in the field, getting their hands dirty and learning a skill or something like that would be great. And who knows if there's funding out there or what that landscape looks like.
Right. I haven't heard of a whole lot of activity with AmeriCorps in probably 10 years.
Kelly, is the job fair just for one day or is it both days?
That's a change in my report. I think I had the 16th or the 23rd, and we've confirmed that it'll be the 23rd from 1 to 4. I did invite the county to attend because I know that we're looking to fill a lot of positions internally. And working with the Department of Labor to invite, we're inviting hundreds of employers. We'll see how many are interested, but yeah, the 23rd.
Anybody else? Doug Kirsch, you're on the line.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody.
Oh,
I can
update.
Yeah.
Yeah. while I got you, and you guys were just talking about the corps, I mean, I came from AmeriCorps, 25 years ago, and the program probably ended about 15 years ago. Just it was an administrative burden, but then they also got rid of some of the environmental corps and focused more in other areas. And you almost had to have an existing corps at the time. We tried to get back into it because our term or whatever was ended back in the day, and we had a hard time getting back in to get a corps. They tried to get us part of a group out of Buffalo and West Seneca, but we were unsuccessful about that. And then the Youth Conservation Corps from back 40 plus years ago was another program that at least that I'm familiar with, that we were involved with, I know. Just to shed a little light on that. But you guys all got a copy of the report. We're still pretty busy dealing with some storm damage stuff. We're trying to tie in the end of construction season here. I know Brian Soper mentioned Scott Gulf Road during his report earlier for those of you guys that were there, and we're hoping to be out of there tomorrow. Maybe we were hoping for today, but just some weather and some other things got in the way throughout the construction season. But pulling the equipment out tomorrow should be done. It looks great. It's had a couple storms test it, and it's holding up well. And I know I talked to Brian the other day, and everybody seems to be happy with the work that we did. So that's good news. It was a long project. Glad to be out of there and go see a change of scenery. I'm sure the operators are too. A few other things that we've been dealing with. We're moving to another site tomorrow. We did pull a big log jam of trees out of Dutch Hollow Brook. We're worried about some of the infrastructure. When you get these heavier rain events, if they run off, about backing up over the roads and causing some problems, plus eroding the banks. So we pulled some large trees out, thanks to the landowners nearby there, like Jim Dickman, and to allow us access to be able to pull the trees out. So, and temporarily store them until we can get rid of them. And then we're removing another one on Dutch Hollow that's going to threaten some infrastructure as well. So we're going to try and move in there tomorrow while our equipment's free, and we're moving stuff around to at least get that out of the way. There's a lot of trees down everywhere, but we're trying to focus on the ones that may cause some problems to roads and houses and such. And then one good news that we did hear about was we did get some additional grant funding. You guys have heard me talk about it for years, that there's not a lot of funding out there for planning. We were able to get a little bit of planning assistance. So we did get $150,000 from the state, in state funding through almost like a federal program to do some planning. So that's going to go towards 6 farms. Only about 35,000 of that is actually planning. The rest is implementation. So, hey, 30,000 is 30,000. We'll take it. It's a good time of year for our staff as well to do different trainings. Every fall, the conservation districts put on a technical training down in Cortland. So our staff was brought up to speed on some of that. Things are rolling. I think we got some good weather coming up. So we're hoping to take advantage of the remaining good days of construction season and are doing our planning for next year and budgeting and project planning and stuff like that. So we're still rocking and rolling. I'll take any questions that you guys have.
Then we'll start it off with the street.
Good evening, Doug.
Hi, Tim.
I mentioned the tub grinder months ago. I know the city's taken down yards and yards of ash trees. I think they're putting them in the landfill. With some of the money that came in, would it be eligible for a tub grinder?
I'm not sure about what what that funding could technically be used for. Grinders are a lot of money, a lot of maintenance. I know the one we were looking at was over $1 million, probably closer to 1.2 million. A lot goes into that for a program that's, it got utilized here and there. Burns equipment out. It's a lot of management and a lot of upkeep with large pieces of equipment like that. I mean, it's too bad that if that's all ash tree, I mean, that's great firewood. Too bad somebody didn't hop on that and get it and start a firewood business.
It went down Lake Avenue, I think last week, and they had beautiful ash trees that they were just grinding up. I said, man, I'll bring my pickup. I didn't, the waste.
Yeah.
I agree.
Pulveral scar on the thing, but the wetlands or the Wasco Flats, we're going into phase 2 for the Wasco Flats.
Well, I'll leave that. I mean, that's been planning's project all along. I think they just finished phase 2 with that sediment basin number 3 that was just installed. And to that point, I was down there during some of those storm events, and it actually, basin 3 did a great job. When I drove along the roadway and just to check and see how it was functioning before the water got too high and you couldn't drive down the road anymore. It actually, about 2/3 of that pond was actually turbid water and pretty chocolatey milk looking. But then by the time you get to the outlet where it was spilling over the spillway and then working its way back into the Owasco Inlet, it was actually clean water coming down that berm. So basin number 3 was functioning fantastic, and that was the newer one. There's some cattails growing in there. The vegetation was established, and it was pretty cool to see. It was hard taking a picture of it just because the mosquitoes were mauling me, and I couldn't stand it any longer than I could be out there trying to get a picture. But it just didn't do it justice too because of the vegetation. But if you were there with your own eyes, it was actually doing a great job. I don't know what the future planning is for that site.
I mean, it took a long time for Owasco Flats to come to being, but I'd love to see our other inlets have some kind of a safeguard on it to capture some of that sediment.
Yeah, and we checked out that Vanessa Brook project that we did over off of Mobbs Road. We checked that out after storm events, and that seems to be functioning as well. Where we did the floodplain bench establishment, and I believe Aula and other groups went in there and planted some willows. So there's some things out there. We have some planned for down towards Moravia, some basins, and we always keep our eyes open wherever we can, and the landowner is on board with it. We do everything we can to withhold some of that water up in the upper reaches of the watershed before it goes down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Doug, how'd the Cooperative seminar go?
It went well. There was probably over 30 people that attended it. Some new faces, he said, and anytime we can get the word out about soil health, that's great. So I know he's got a couple more plans that we're going to be working on, and like I say, it's always good to get out there and spread the word. So it makes a difference, especially in years like this. That's what we talk about, exciting stuff like that around the office. When you see good, productive, organic, rich type soils being able to infiltrate some of the water instead of just compacted soils that allow it to run off, you really see results. But it takes a while. It's just like anything that's beneficial. It just doesn't happen overnight. Kind of like the 9-element plan and some of the work that's going to be tied to improving the watershed. Stuff doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and you just chip away at it, and over time you start to see results.
Okay, anybody else for Doug? Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. I'll be on the line in case anybody has any.
Okay. You here, Karen?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I am here. You've got my report. It's the standard sections. The occupancy tax continues. The occupancy percentage continues to be really good, especially when you compare it to 2019, which was a good year. And I always leave 2020 in there for you to see the contrast and the heavy hit that year caused. E-communications refers to the emails and contacts that we had with both our partners as well as visitors. You will see that going up now that we are fully staffed in the office again. Groups, we are starting to pick up a lot of activity on groups and starting to plan to attend the group sales events that will be happening in 2022. So we're starting to prepare for those. One of the big ones I did want to highlight here is both in the marketing. The Syracuse Channel 9 has started filming around the county for their Discover Cayuga County program that we're sponsoring that will be released early 22. And further down, actually it's all the way in the upcoming because we weren't confirmed. We are confirmed with CBS Good Morning America that is going to be filming in the area the 18th and the 19th. So we will be participating in that shoot. They will be visiting both Spruce Haven Farm and Cayuga Milk Ingredients. The concept behind it is the dairy farm transition. So they were looking to highlight dairy farms that are doing something different. We started this outreach with CETA, with Tracy a while back. And we're really happy to see it actually coming out to fruition. So we're excited to work that one up. We're doing in conjunction with Seneca County, and they'll be spotlighting Miranda Cheese in Seneca County. You've got most of my report, so I don't want to dwell too much on that, but if you have questions, I'll answer them. But I did want to bring up something that's not in the report because we just received it. Annually, we receive the Oxford Economic Report, which is a New York State report that discusses the economic impact of tourism. And it's the 2020 report that finally came out that we've been waiting for. What I wanted to highlight there specifically, and I can give you the numbers in next month's report unless somebody wants to contact me directly between there, is New York State, the visitor spending was cut in half. There was a 54% decrease in statewide of the tourism economic development. Then our region, the Finger Lakes region in general, did not take such a big hit. It was only 40% in comparison. It's still bad, but it's much better. But the most special that I wanted to point out is Cayuga County only suffered a 22% decrease. And I really wanted to point this out and talk about it because it demonstrates the effort that has been going through with our office to highlight it and to stand it out and to position it in a way that it is a safe destination, open air, big farms. So it's working. It worked. And it was amazing to see the numbers and to see how really it worked. So we will continue with some of this positioning. We hope that the numbers continue being as good. There was no way to have been able to predict that. So I'll be able to provide more detail in next month's report. Any questions?
I got a quick one. Has Tim volunteered for milking cows on the 17th or the 18th with his new bibs for CBS?
I think I missed the actual question there. I'm sorry.
I just wondering if Tim volunteered to be out there when CBS is doing it.
No.
That's a personal
I noted to show up for the
But you know, modern cows, you gotta milk them with a machine.
Well,
You can't
you
hand
know,
milk them anymore.
maybe they could start the segment off with the old fashioned days, there's Tim with his straw hat.
I don't have a pair of overalls. I got to borrow some, but
Yeah.
our neighboring county was studying an aquarium. And I think one time when I was on the planning board back in the 70s, we looked at a zoo. I mean, more people go to zoos and aquariums than go to football games and baseball combined. Is there anything, have you studied what the aquarium could do for tourism?
What an aquarium could do for tourism? No, I have not looked at those numbers. I know that people really like to do family-oriented activities, and all the ones that you just mentioned are very family-oriented. It's one of the marketing outreaches that we're planning on doing in 22.
Just saying attractions, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay,
Anybody
thank you.
else-
Next.
Anybody else for Karen? Very much.
Thank you.
Danielle from CETA.
Good evening. You have my report. I'm not going to take too much time this evening. I do have a few highlights from what I provided. Last month, SBA held a webinar on some of the updates from the EIDL loan. EIDL was one of the first federal resources that was launched early 2020 to help businesses access some COVID relief. In terms of some of the updates, they have expanded their eligibility requirements to allow additional entities to apply for resources, as well as allow businesses to go back and increase their loan request, which is really great. MRB Group, they gave a final presentation last month on the final outcomes of the supply chain analysis. As you can see, there were 6 identified industries that came out of it. It was brought to my attention that this final report was not shared with the committee, so I will be sure to follow up with a separate email that provides the final report. Last month, I had spoke to Assemblyman Lamons on some of the identified challenges and opportunities that came out of the supply chain analysis around slaughter facilities. Animal slaughtering and processing was not one of the industry categories studied in depth during the analysis, but the data and interviews that were conducted revealed a desperate need for local slaughter facilities. This is lacking in Cayuga County, even more so in the central New York region. So as a result of this conversation, we are looking to set up a committee to explore this more and really kind of understand the barriers around the USD guidelines for developing slaughter facilities. MEG is continuing to improve the microenterprise program and has identified the need to embed workforce development and supportive services into the program. Many of the entrepreneurs that are going through this program have experienced generational and situational poverty and really need to overcome some personal barriers. So she's looking to find ways to connect with our workforce partners and educational partners to embed some of those professional skills and some of those behavioral-based skills to help individuals grow, which would also provide long-term success as they're opening up their business. Also, CEDA's website, it is officially launched with some of the improvements to help with the visitor's experience. Some of the highlights some of the highlights of the improvements of the website now include an events page. And then we've also customized the Cayuga County asset map more to include more features, as well as individual links to all the municipalities and the school district websites. Also, the website now can support interactive data, and we have a password protected content area. This will really help me, especially when I'm creating the attraction proposals and setting up site tours, as well as it's going to become a resource center for all the individuals that are going through the microenterprise program. One last highlight, which is really exciting, I included it in my quarterly report that I submitted. I had a really busy summer responding to several attraction proposals and even had the opportunity to host 2 site tours. We are actually currently working on an active project site, and hopefully this will become public at the end of the month. This project's investment is estimated at $120 million and a potential creation of 200 jobs. That's all I have. I'll take any questions.
Nancy, hi, the couple questions. The animal food manufacturing is slaughterhouses, is that correct?
No, that is actually the manufacturing of food, animal food, kind of like Grober Nutrition. They make a calf replacement feeder. When we were doing all the interviews, it kind of came up as this actual additional need. So the MRB group didn't have the bandwidth to do a 7th industry, but what they did, and you'll see this in the final report, that they incorporated some data and did highlight some of the things around animal slaughtering, and that there is a real need. In my conversation with Assembly Lamons, that USDA guidelines have made it really challenging for small to mid-size facilities to do slaughtering. And it is pushing out tons of money out of the area, if not the state. So all the farmers are actually shipping their animals down to Pennsylvania or even further to have them processed. So it's kind of just starting a larger dialogue of kind of understanding what are the real barriers around the USD guidelines and seeing if this isn't a bigger need here in the county.
Okay, and is that in the report or no?
It is in the report. So when I send the report, I will also highlight the pages that highlight the slaughtering facilities and processing.
What is converted paper product manufacturing?
Cardboard boxes. This was an interesting outcome that came out of this. It pretty much every interview that we had, there is a huge shortage in accessing cardboard. And our next door neighbor, Amazon, has pretty much purchased or has contracted all of the local suppliers to provide cardboard for their facility, which a lot of the companies are now outsourcing to Canada or finding other ways to do shipments.
Anyone else? Trish.
Thanks. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Trish.
I just, I appreciate your report, and I don't know if there's any opportunity to have a presentation of the supply chain analysis to our committee or to interested legislators. But I would love to hear that presentation if there's an opportunity. And I guess I just wanted to point out that these are opportunities that the consultant identified that will strengthen our existing economic sectors here in the county. That's my understanding, is that that's how this project was approached, was to look at those opportunities based on what we currently have here, and heavily agriculture based, obviously. But great to get a presentation and to kind of hear the bigger picture of, you know, what even is the supply, what is a supply chain analysis, and how this fits into our existing economic base, because we have a lot of manufacturing here and a lot of opportunity here, and I think people forget about all the good things already going on, that these recommendations could help strengthen what we already have.
So the point of the supply chain analysis was actually to kind of create guidance or really provide information where CETA can create a targeted strategy when it comes to attraction efforts. And what we really wanted to start with is the existing businesses and understand where their gaps and surpluses are. Because if we bring new business in, we want to make sure that it is supporting the existing businesses here. I think Dumont is a really good example. I know Dan touched on it briefly earlier, but at one point in time, there was a gap in processing. So Todd had kind of worked with kind of bringing another company here and really kind of expanding his operations to now provide processing. So it's really kind of these, they did a very large analysis at first, and then as they were kind of whittling down the data and the area and the region, they started to identifying these 6 industries being the targeted area or the targeted focuses if we were to create an attraction strategy. I will say I have not had as much time as I wanted in the last month to really dive into this, to really start creating that strategic plan around attraction. It is very important. And it is definitely a priority of CETA's, especially in 2022. So I'm more than happy to create a presentation and report out to the county ledge or any of the committee that is really more interested in learning more about the supply chain or be involved in this attraction or the strategic plan to create the attraction plan.
Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Danielle. I forgot to bring today, back in January, I circulated from one of the best economic developers in the state, Steve Hyde out of Ontario. We had a draft copy of their proposal, you know, the new economic normal in the pandemic. Did you ever see that report? I've never heard anything back from CETA or anybody else that I sent it to, have you seen that?
No, I have not.
All right, well, let me get that to you, and then I think it would help organize some of our thoughts.
That'd be great. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lynch.
Good evening, everybody. Glad to be here. I'm remote tonight. You all have my report. I highlighted about 20 projects and focus areas. As you could read the report, our staff is consistently meeting with a lot of our town and village elected officials on these projects on a month-to-month basis, their boards and their residents. So if they're in your districts, make sure you take a look at that. And you're, of course, welcome to participate and go to those meetings. The only other couple of highlights I have is the September 27th, we did the electronics recycling event. Cornell Cooperative Extension helped out. Newcore sent some volunteers. We're very thankful and grateful for that. Over about a 4-hour period that we were open, we brought through 508 vehicles and recycled about 63,000 pounds of electronics equipment. In addition, we had some Freon recycling. There was 3 box trucks that were filled with Freon, and 135 residents were shredding, came in and shredded material. I will let you know that we cut our vendor costs by more than 1/3 by going out to bid and getting a new vendor, and the vendor worked perfectly with us, and we're looking forward to continuing that relationship with that vendor. So we brought our costs down and we kept our commodity up. We're following up with that. This Saturday is our household hazardous waste event, chemicals, household materials that are hazardous are being recycled. That's from 9 to 1 this Saturday. We'll have staff there. I'll be there. Cornell Cooperative Extension will also have staff there, and Soil and Water is always there. And we thank also the Sheriff's Department for helping us out and to accommodating us over at the Soil and Water Conservation District campus. During Public Works, there was a question of when exactly the Sterling Nature Center construction bids were being opened. That's scheduled for Tuesday, October 19th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The plan is to open those bids to see how the bids might have increased from when we went out to bid last March. We expect them to be a little bit higher, although commodity prices and labor and material markets have normalized a little bit. We still expect them to be up, even though we're planning on doing construction next spring. But after October 19th, we'll be putting together an award resolution. We will be probably in a situation where we'll have to request additional funding if we want this project to move forward. Don't know what that number is right now. But we will put that resolution together, whether or not it goes through Public Works and then Planning Committee, both committees dual. We're happy to do that if that's the best way to do it. And that's what I have. I don't have any resolutions this evening. Happy to answer any questions as well.
Keith, first.
Yeah, I guess in the, I mentioned this to Dan, actually, I got a couple complaints for the first time ever on the electronics recycling.
Mm-hmm.
That in the past, there's never been, that was one of the events that there was never required to sign up for, make a reservation. And and this one there was, and it was, COVID related and all of that, but the person, the 2 people, and it's not a whole lot, but since I've never got one complaint on it, it jumped out at me. The 2 people that I talked to, their complaints were a couple. One was, all of a sudden, they had to make reservations. It wasn't clear to them they had to. When they found out they did have to, they called and it was full. Which was problematic for both of these people. The other thing, and I did reach out to Dan a little bit on this, and I said, if we're going to do this and we're going to fill up on these things, then it would be nice value added to be able to tell people that you can take computers to any place that sells computers, wherever that is. I don't even know who takes them anymore. ADP used to, I I think the Staples used to, I don't know if they still do, but so that we're just not simply telling people, no, it's full, because that's the message they got. The message they got was, nope, it's full, too bad. And I'm sure that wasn't the intent, but that's what was communicated. So in the future, if we're going to limit these things, it would be just helpful to be able to tell people, if you got this, this, or this, you can take it wherever. If we could.
Thank you for that feedback, Keith, and for the email exchanges while this registration was going on. I appreciate it. Two things. One is we are already just debriefing on that, so that was part of our conversation. We are talking about not just electronics, but throughout the recycling stream, trying to come up with lists of other opportunities and other options that people have, whether it's something that we're full or something that we just don't recycle at this point, so that we can provide that information to people if they call, so there's options. And number two is we've already talked about having a second electronics recycling event next year. Last year and this year is a transition year. We didn't have the staff on board until pretty late in the year, earlier in this year to do this event. So we only did the one event this year, but we're going to go to having two events next year. And the other feedback that you have, we're definitely taking that into consideration, and we'll act on that, Keith.
Steve, I just have a question on the Emerson Park bill. So we're just looking at avenues for revenue, or what else are we looking at there to keep this thing moving and not lose momentum?
We submitted a 2021 consolidated funding application to the Parks Department to take the schematic designs for the playground right through, and for the playground and the concession stand through complete design documentation and ready to bid docs. We haven't heard about that yet. That is usually announced by the governor's office in November. In addition to that, I think at Public Works, Doug Delastrito talked about the various funding mechanisms that we've been exploring at the state level, with Senator Schumer's office on the federal level, with the governor's office. And Aileen McNabb Coleman has been doing a lot of that liaison work with Doug Delastrito in addition. So that's where we're at right now. There have been ongoing conversations with the foundations as well. So that's what we have in the works right now, Paul.
Thank you. Anybody else for Steve?
I have a question.
Trish.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Trish.
Thanks for your report. I was curious, I saw with the town and the village of Moravia, part of the process that you guys were following was to review the climate action plan for municipal energy reductions. Part of the comprehensive plan, the plans that will be adopted, or is that a separate plan? I was just curious about that.
Both of those comprehensive plans were funded through individual grants that we wrote through the Department of Environmental Conservation, through Climate Smart Communities program, and they require an analysis of greenhouse gas emissions at the municipal level, and then a climate action plan. And they give you a whole list of components that should be considered in a climate action plan for municipalities. And then we work with the municipality to see what is acceptable and what might be done. And so that is part of those plans. It will be adopted as part of those plans, and that's required in order to get the grant. Quite frankly, although I am a big supporter of climate action plans and greenhouse gases, this is not the best way to get funding for a comprehensive plan. And it's been difficult to work through this process with the DEC as far as the greenhouse gas analysis, et cetera. I can talk to you on the side about that, but yes, it is part of the plan.
Okay, and then just a follow-up question on, is there like a list that we have of municipal projects that are climate action related or green energy related? I didn't know if we have such a comprehensive list or not. I know that every municipality's kind of their own approach, but the city of Auburn's done some projects. Our county has done some projects. There's plans out there now. I didn't know if there was a centralized location where we could showcase some of this work that we're doing countywide.
We're not collecting that, whether we're aware of it or we, send out, requests for information on who's working on what, but we certainly know the projects that we're working on. We can put a list together of the ones that we know about. But as you know, sometimes towns and villages and municipalities will go out and work, with consultants, et cetera, on their own projects that don't necessarily involve county planning. So we don't have a comprehensive list right now.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Okay, anybody else for Steve? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else to come before the planning committee tonight?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
Second, Trish. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.